What's up, everybody? It's Angry Ange from Fix Your Effing House. We're going to keep it PG this time because YouTube likes to flag my videos because I curse too much within the first few seconds of the video. So we've now changed the name to Effing, whatever. This video is going to show you 14 things you should do during the daylight saving transition. It's a good segue into looking into and kind of getting yourself on a schedule of looking at these things because they're important. They're really important, actually. So twice a year, daylight savings happens, one in the fall, one in the springtime. So it's a good thing to kind of remind yourself to do these few tasks, and they're pretty simple. And it'll save you a lot of headache in the long run if you maintain these 14 things. And we're not looking at decor. We're looking at strictly we're going to be looking at smoke detectors. We're going to be looking at the basement. We're going to be looking at the attic, your utilities, most important things, run your house, things like that. We're not going to be talking about blinds. You should clean your blinds and stuff like that. So this is stuff that really could be a big monumental impact to your house. Your cost a lot. So this is what we're going to look at today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what we're looking at here is a gas boiler and a gas hot water heater. Typically, you'll either have a combination like this, gas, electric. This potentially could be a combination of heat and forced air type of system. But right now, we're looking at the gas system. I'm not asking you to understand what's happening here. What I'm asking you is to look at certain things to potentially be a problem later on. For instance, all these connections, valves, connections, everything in the general area where it could look potentially a problem. Look for water droplets on the floor. Look for rust on the pipes, especially around the water system. Understand how this works. Understand how the shutoff works. Pretty key, because if something happens, you would need to know where to shut the water off immediately. So when you look at these, go through it, understand what's happening, open up the inside, look what's happening. This one's fairly new. I got this installed only a few months ago. So I know there's nothing wrong with it and it works beautifully. So I think you should just kind of go through everything and just understand how it looks. You don't really need to know how it works, but it'd be a great understanding of how it works. Gas shutoff valve, water shutoff valves, drainage valves, all these things you should understand how it works, and if things need to happen, somebody can troubleshoot and walk you through certain situations. Zoomed in version of your system. This is a 3-zone system, and what you want to know is where the shutoff valves are and look at all the connections. They're pretty good. This was installed September, a few months ago, so this is a fairly new system, a really new system, really. So there's no issues here. So you have your shutoffs here, you have shutoffs here, and these shutoffs are for individual zones. That one back there, my main shutoff for the whole house. I'm sorry, for the whole boiler. And as you see, it kind of runs up the wall into the ceiling. So that would shut off water completely to the boiler if you need it. But just open it up, make sure everything's okay. Like I said, this is new. There's nothing that's going to be, catastrophic here. Those are your burners. So when it actually ignites, you'll see flames there. And you keep around it clean too, because it is an open flame. You want to make sure nothing happens to it, and nothing, burns down your house. This is a close version of the hot water heater. You just heard the boiler kicked on. So I like to put the dates when I install these so people know how old they are. Especially if you have somebody come service them, they probably won't know, but it's about a year old. So the key about this is knowing where these shutoff valves are specifically, because if this tank were to blow or to crack, it would spew water everywhere. And it won't stop running until you shut off a valve. So the valves are usually on top. You have 2 valves typically. One is for hot water coming out and one's for cold water coming in. If your tank does not have this, I would suggest putting these in for sure. If your tank doesn't have this, most likely this is an old system, so you probably should change out the tank. Typically these last for anywhere. For a gas system, they usually last for 8 to 12 years. I think electric, you can probably get 10 to 15. So, if you're up that high, make sure you definitely monitor it. This is your drain down or your emergency drain down. I'd like to put a bucket underneath there. It's a small bucket, but let me put that one underneath there. And that's that. So the next big thing we should talk about is water valves at all the plumbing fixtures. You'll have one water valve at the toilet, 2 water valves at every sink for hot and cold. What's crucial about this is every daylight savings, what you should do is you should turn them completely off and turn them completely open again. And the reason behind this is if you ever need to replace this toilet and that valve does not shut off, you'll have to shut the whole house down. It becomes a big to-do. So what this does is prevents it from being seized up. Typically, what happens is if you don't turn them regularly, they'll seize up, and then you'll get some shoddy plumber who tries to crank this all the way to either break it or they don't get it to a point where they can shut off and there's water leaking all the time when they're replacing something. So quick little turn here on all the fixtures, probably take you about 5 minutes to do. So I'd highly recommend to just give it a quick turn all the way off, all the way open, calling it a day. It'll save you a lot of headaches later on. Trust me, you don't want water, no matter how little it is, it'll still do a lot of damage. So the next thing that everybody should look at is your exhaust fans in your bathroom. These things collect a lot of dust. These things usually get filthy. Matter of fact, I like cleaning these at least 4 times a year. I don't even wait for daylight savings to do this. I usually do this, like I said, 4 times a year. It gets dusty, it looks shitty, and this thing is actually a real fire hazard. Because if this fan runs and it runs hot and there's a lot of shit in there, you'll wind up catching on fire and you'll wind up burning your attic and not even knowing your attic's on fire, and then wind up torching your whole house. So this is definitely key. Keep this as clean as possible. Do this more than 2 times a year, and trust me, you'll wind up saving your house, saving the time and aggravation of trying to clean this thing twice a year. 4 times a year is so much easier. So take care of this. This covering comes out, and you really want to clean is the guts. You'll see a lot on here, but there's more inside. So you want to really kind of get in there. What you want to do is you want to pull this down. You usually got like these spring-loaded clips, and they're simple. Just like that, they come out, and this one's not as bad because I clean most of it regularly, but you still want to kind of get in there and you want to clean it. But more importantly, you want to, this fan too, you want to clean it. So the next thing you should check is your attic. You want to make sure your attic is dry. You want to make sure there's no animals in your attic. You want to make sure that your attic is, this is going to be a reflection of the roof actually. So what you want to do is you want to check any penetration through the roof itself, and you want to check any of the vents and your fans that are on the side of the house. Make sure there's no water, no staining. You want to make sure that there's no holes, especially no holes in the attic. I like to do this during the day. Come up in the attic, I shut all the lights off, and you'll be able to see any daylight that's around. So that's a key thing. So you shut your light off. You know, obviously be careful when you do it because, you know, there's shit around and I don't really have a floor here. So you got to be really careful when you do that. But what you really want to do is just check everything. Make sure there's no water stains, no animals, no droppings, and pretty much no openings. You want to make sure your attic is key. Your attic and your foundation are, you know, essentially your bones of your building. You know, and things can happen up there that you will have no idea. And by the time it starts showing at the house level, it might be too late. You know, whether it's water infiltration, a rodent infestation of some sort. So just be on top of your attic and your basements, crawl spaces, etc. All right, so this is my attic fan. If you guys have attic fans, it might be a good opportunity to now switch this to wintertime setting. Typically, this would run at a different temperature during the wintertime than during the summertime. It's always good to have circulation in the attic because, you know, stale air creates mold and stuff like that. So there's a good opportunity to switch this over. Look up the temperatures. I think the temperatures are usually around 80 degrees that they like to kick on, but just confirm your temperature before resetting that. So everything looks good around here. Nothing crazy. You look like you got some old beehives or some sort there, but they look like they're dead. So I think we're good. No staining of water around there. And we're good to go here. Here's one of the penetrations through my roof that you want to make sure you look at. Doesn't look like there's any water damage or any new water damage. That's old water damage that I had to fix and a leaky roof. So we had to fix that. Replaced the roof a few years ago. So this all looks good. You want to make sure, like, there's a little space around here. You know, maybe you could always throw something there to kind of block it. But like on top of this is the roof boot. So it's like a rubberized material that sits on top, prevents the water from coming in, gets integrated into the roof. So no water. Since you're up here, my AC unit. You want to make sure that this is all fully operational. Make sure that there's no water in the pan. Make sure there's nothing's clogging your overflow pipes, and you want to make sure that everything looks all hunky-dory. Speaking of daylight, see those little openings? I gotta fix those. Make sure there's no daylight at all in this attic. Next thing you want to check is your air filters. So this is only for the AC. Some people have forced hot air, so this would be affected. So what you want to do is open it up, take out the filter. Typically you want to change these filters every 3 months. What I like to do is I like to put the date on it. And the way I put the date on is when I close this, I can read the date from the back side, so I don't have to get up here and look. So August 2nd, November 2nd, look at that. Solid 2 months. 2 months, right? 2 months. So I like to put the date on it again. Oh, also, clean this fucking grill. Don't be that dirtbag and not clean the grill, because all that shit's gonna get sucked up into the new filter. So do yourself a favor, clean that. I like to write this on multiple sides. Make sure you put it in right. That's also another key thing. Typically, the backing goes against the vent, the pipe. See, you can see the date from here, 11/2. So wait 3 months and then replace it again. All right, next thing, fire alarms and CO detectors. So typically old homes will have battery operated ones, and they're usually good for about 10 years. So this house we moved in 2 years ago. These things are about 2 years old. So we're just going to really just test them at this point. After the 5 year mark, you should really kind of consider changing out the battery. As you saw the red light, you know there's power to it. So let's just try this. So you're going to push, test, and hold. There you go. And now the other button, you just press the hush. Just like that. Typically, they have a date on it. They have a date of install, and they say replace batteries in 10 years. So make sure if you install these, you write this on this so you know when the battery has to be changed. So this is the CO detector, and you'll pretty much do the same thing. You'll hold the button down until it beeps. And now you'll do this throughout the house. Wherever you have a CO detector, wherever you have a smoke detector, you want to test them all, especially in areas where like the bedrooms are, because those should be crucial. So it's beeping. Things take a little bit. Anything now. There you go. It beeps. So you know it works. This also, again, is a 10-year battery lifespan. So, you know, they were installed the same time as the smoke detectors, so you got a few more years, quite a few more years. So another thing I like to check is, I like to check my silicone corners in my showers. This is important because if they're cracked and you have water going in there every day, even if it's a little bit, you wind up creating mold behind the shower door, the shower tile. And, you know, after time, the tiles will wind up popping off and you'll have more issues with the wood and structure and shit like that. So you should go in the showers, check all the seams, check around the tub. I want to make sure everything looks good. This one's fairly new. I put this in a few years ago, so that one looks pretty good. Now, you obviously could check this when you're in the shower, but typically if you're going to replace it, you're not going to do it when you're naked. So at least you were prepared for it to do it if you needed to. So, you know, usually you do a silicone, 100% silicone in the corners and at the tub. Don't, you know, people put grout in there, but that's not really the right thing. They'll wind up cracking out after a while. So 100% silicone in the corners and at the tub, and you're good to go. Another thing to remember is your filter for your refrigerator, if it produces ice or water. Typically, you'll have a sensor up here that tells you need to be replaced. Ours doesn't need to be replaced, but if you had to replace it, it's typically in the back or on the top. Pull this out. There it is. Pull it out, put a new one in, call it a day. That one's easy. Typically, the refrigerator will tell you if it needs to be replaced, and then that's it. Easy one. So one important aspect is the crawl spaces, basements. Like I said with the attic, if something's happening down here and you don't know about it, by the time it gets into the actual living area of the house, most likely it's going to be too late. You always want to check out if there's any animals, bugs, if there's mold growing on the beams. You want to really kind of catch that well in advance before something happens. So checking this out periodically 2 times a year does a big world of difference if, God forbid, there is something here. And it's also a good opportunity. You want to check out all the foundation walls, make sure nothing's cracked, make sure there's no debris on the ground, make sure no mold, like I said before, animals, etc. You know, the second this gets into your living area, I think personally it's already too late, because I consider basements, attics, crawl spaces, etc. part of the house already. So check this out, make sure everything looks good, and that's that. Me, I have my well system in here, and I do check that with my boiler, my hot water tank. So like I said, this is part of the house, and you want to kind of treat this as a real important aspect. You got to remember, this is holding up the house. So if something's happening down here, it affects everything else, just like the roof. The roof is your head. This is your feet. Once your head goes, once your feet goes, no point in having a house. So, and it's also expensive to fix if, God forbid, something happens. Daylight savings, obviously, leaves are falling. So what you want to do is try to clean off as many leaves as possible. Your gutters, the corners of your roofs, what happens is when it starts snowing, it blocks your gutters, creates an ice dam, which creates ice on the roof, and eventually pick up these shingles, and you'll wind up getting water inside the house. So what you want to do is make sure your gutters are clean, your roof is clean. If you have any gutter guards, clean out all the gunk and shit that's got all through it. Find out the best way is just taking a roof blower on the roof and just blowing everything off. And that's that. I mean, there's a few leaves still on trees, so maybe one day I'll come up here later on when all the leaves are done falling. But other than that, majority of it is taken care of today. Fireplace, whether you burn wood, pellets, or any of this other garbage that you burn in the house, I suggest you get a chimney sweep and look at your fireplace. Before turning it on, before burning your first wood for the season, because what happens is the soot gets stuck into the inside of this chimney, and what it will do is eventually it'll get caught on fire. This could turn into literally a torch. It'll burn down your house. So get your fireplace checked out before you start cooking on your fireplaces or your pot stoves, and save your fucking house. The hose cocks, what you want to do is you want to shut them off from the inside and potentially cover them. If you can't, they make insulated covers that goes on these. They hook onto the valve, and they suction themselves to whatever surrounding material they have. So definitely look into these. If these things freeze and they crack, they become an issue because water will be spewing everywhere, and it's just one less thing that you want to deal with. Really, is a busted hose cocks. It's kind of annoying. Another thing what you want to look for is you want to look for any cracks at the foundation. Typically during the winter time, obviously you get a lot of freezing and a lot of snow, and what happens is if there's cracks here, water gets in there and it freezes over the expanding and contracting of water. You could potentially open up that crack bigger and create more of a structural issue for yourself later on. It's always great to know what your actual foundation is made out of. This is a stucco finish on top of block, so there might be hairline cracks in the stucco, but there's not structural damage. But always keep an eye on some cracking, especially the diagonal cracking. Diagonal cracking is a significant structural issue, and if it starts getting real severe and real deep, real wide, you should definitely call somebody to come check it out, a professional to come check it out and make sure that there's nothing wrong with your foundation. Like I said, this also goes with the basement and the crawl space. Reviewing that and looking over that on both sides, outside and inside, because remember, you take your feet away in your house, you pretty much have no house. Dryer vents. These things are the most dangerous things in your house. Why? Because you see all that lint that gets collected? What it does, it blocks the ventilation. This is hot air blowing through here, and what happens is this will eventually catch your house on fire. So what you want to do is maintain this as best as possible, clean it the best as possible. You might have to get a broom. They make these like coiled brooms that go inside the pipe, clean it all out. You want to clean all the debris off of it, and you want to make sure that this is fully operational at all times and lint free at all times. You see that? You want to make sure all that stuff is out. You want to brush it the best you can from the outside, get all this stuff off. Kind of hard to do this with one hand. Same thing with I'm going to clean all this shit off. This is just like your dryer vent. You know how many times you clean it? Every time you dry something, you want to get in there and kind of do the same with this. My pipe is pretty clean. I'm looking into it. It just seems like the debris on the outside. I know the pipe in the inside of the house is fairly new. I put that in about 2 years ago. You want to make sure it's clean. There's no good enough type of deal with this, because this will be a fire hazard. It's not if, it's when. If you let this thing go and you decide to be very, very careless about this. So typically they'll have, you can buy things that go down the pipe. I have it. I'm not going to show you how to do it. I have a video online already how to do it. Go look at that. I'll put it up for you guys to see. I'll link it to this video so you can kind of check it out. Pretty cool. Hooks up to a drill, goes in, goes out, pulls out a lot of shit. Works pretty well. That's that. Hopefully some of these tips you guys could look through, and hopefully they benefit you, and hopefully there's no big serious problems with any of these situations. You should do this twice a year. Some things you could, push off, but definitely looking at the basement, your crawl space, your attics. A lot of people don't go into them. You should definitely look into them. Look at your roof for sure. These are big ticket items, and they could cost a lot if something is wrong. So hopefully this is helpful, and catch you on the next one.